I'm going to reflect the readership in the books, and I'm going to reflect the readership in the characters. And so, and I was just like talking about this last week on Twitter, because a very valid criticism of me is that I'm not subtle. I can be subtle. There are things in which I'm very subtle, but there are other things where I'm not subtle. And so with book 10 onwards, I was slamming people over the head with bisexuality, with non-binary, with this, with that, and I was just slamming them over the head to make it unarguable that this is what I'm doing, that these are the characters now, that you either like it and you keep reading or you don't. And you can stick with the first 9 books, but from book 10 on, things are going to change, because I have a responsibility to the readership, and hopefully in as non-cynical fashion as I could possibly manage, to reflect them in in this series. Um, and if they were suddenly booted out of a universe they adored and they loved and they thought was a home, if they were suddenly not welcome there anymore, then I figured every other writer has the obligation and has the responsibility to be as welcoming and as inclusive and as, as diverse as they can possibly manage, without being too obvious about it, without being too cynical, without being too clumsy. Yeah, I thought, that's my job. Um, yeah, yeah. So basically, in Skullduggery now, I'm trying my very best for there not to be a default character. So when a new character gets introduced, you don't automatically think, here's a white guy, here's a straight white guy. Um, yeah, yeah. So you're going to have to wait until I confirm who this character is before you can see them.
I'm reading the chats. Thank you, Derek. This is really well said. Jamanki said, just in case people didn't know who we were referring to earlier, who does the opposite of what you do, which what you do is to be growing, having your ear to the ground and listening to your fans and doing research and all that kind of good stuff. That other person, Jamaki says, is that person who wrote the same book 7 times, who wrote the same book 7 times. Also different from what Derek does, but it's about Derek, not about this other person. This is the Second Life Book Club with Derek Landy, creator of the Skullduggery Pleasant Universe. We're here in the castle. There's a lot of lag, so folks should come back here and look around because there's a really awesome gallery of art around, of the character art. You mentioned fans. I'm going to put up a slide here of fan art that you tweeted. It's just amazing. People are sending this to you. These are drawings. Um, of you and of Skullduggery and of some of the characters. There's little cartoons here, just absolutely amazing. This is the first slide. Let me see if the camera can pan over that. Yep, we got it on camera. And here is another one. Um, a collage. Here, somebody drew the Bentley, which is Skullduggery's car. They're sitting here in the car, and here he is. Um, Again, different, like here's pencil, full color. There is a COVID mask. Somebody made a COVID mask.
Yep.
Insane. Are you not afraid of some crazy fan? Sometimes I think, like, Stephen King's address is so public. I wonder if he has how many security detail he has.
Yeah. No,
You had a
I've
stalker
been,
yet?
I, well, my girlfriend slightly. Um, Um, that's how she became my girlfriend. So sometimes it works, boys and girls.
Ah, yeah.
Uh, um, no, I have met very enthusiastic readers, um, very opinionated uh, readers. Um, but it no, it's all been a joy, and you know, I I live out in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. But even so, there have been people who have knocked on my front door saying, yeah, there were two girls in particular, two teenage girls years ago, who knocked on my door and they're saying, "Oh, sorry, is Stephen here?" I said, "No, I think you might have the wrong house." Oh, um, are you Derek Landy? And it would have almost been believable if they weren't both holding the skullduggery books that they wanted me to sign. So yeah, so there have been instances where I have been tracked down, but every practically every interaction, especially in person, um, has been absolutely wonderful and lovely. And I do have very odd readers, but they are very, very nice. So yeah, I quite like
That
them.
is that is a sweet story. I mean, if you wonder if these girls have found Steven yet. Um, Oh, here's a quote that I don't want to. Beth put in the local chat. Magic is just science we don't understand yet. Arthur C. Clarke. This is from earlier fantasy versus sci-fi. Kind of a kind of a dumb dialogue that you sometimes have or still have out there, very binary. Jumanki says the problem with sci-fi authors writing themselves into corners and do Deus Ex Machina, where they come up with a new piece of magic technology to beat the bad guy, makes it indistinguishable from, I would say, bad um, fantasy. Now we're officially out of time, but if it's okay with Derek, a few minutes over because of these technical issues. You got 5 more minutes, Derek, for a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Thank you, thank you. Because I have two big questions here. The big question, reading for pleasure. We talked about this earlier, and we talk about it here frequently on the book club. Reading for pleasure. I mean, books are so. Let's not get into sort of the numbers. Some people say, "Oh, we sell more books than ever before," and other people don't. No, we don't. This and that. The fact of the matter is that reading for pleasure is something that I feel is in peril, and there's several reasons for it. For me, the main reason is not even the relentless competition from audiovisual um, entertainment. I mean, I think that that is an issue because it's
Hmm.
easier to consume. Reading does take an effort, even if it's very entertaining or quote unquote light. Um, it's always easier to put yourself in front of a thing that just streams it into your brain. But I
Hmm.
think that the other main issue is really that basically uh, the life is the job life for most people stuck in jobs that are draining them of energy, and at the end of the day they don't have the power or the energy to pick up a book, and then there's the TV or the game or
Hmm.
something audiovisual. How do you see this? Of course, we brought you here to present us with the magic bullet. By the way, you have a fireball in your hand, which looks absolutely awesome. I'm looking at on camera now. People were probably wondering why you're not on fire. Well, because because you're already dead. You got a fireball in your hand. It looks awesome. Um, but what do you think, like, about this issue? Where are we? Am I too pessimistic? Do you have a little optimism in that thing, or do you have a magic bullet? Maybe how do you get people to read? I mean, you're getting people to
Uh,
read.
yeah, it's I don't know. Um, I think Okay, I honestly think there will always be a core, solid group of readers. Um, we may have lost the majority of people because of technology, not just because they have easier things to access, like TV, movies, games, um, but also because the technology has made it harder to read, as in it's made it harder for us to focus for that amount of time. It's made it
Yep.
harder for us to absorb the same information in the same way that we used to. Um, so that I think we may have lost the majority of the world's readers. Um,
That's
but
pretty
I think
pessimistic. I happen
yes,
to
but
agree
I
with you because I feel that, like you're saying, the rewiring of the brain because of the expectations of this instant gratification. I mean, we live in a candy store 24/7, by the,
yeah,
if you will, and somebody says, "Hey, here's a piece of broccoli or some steamed broccoli with some sesame seeds on it." Nah, I got my candy. Simplifying. Sorry,
yeah,
to interrupt. Go ahead.
yeah. No, no. Uh, but I think there will always be a core segment of society who understands, who appreciates books, who will read books. And as long as that core segment doesn't get any smaller, I think we're going to be okay, because while we may have lost the majority, I think every so often there is something that gets through. There is a Twilight. There is a 50 Shades of Grey. There is a Harry Potter. There is a Da Vinci Code that that breaks out from the core group, and it infects the masses. It infects the majority that we have lost, and
The
it
good
pulls
entry
them
drug.
back in.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
That's
So
the
there
good
will always
yeah.
be something. And it might be really well written, or it might be terribly written. It doesn't matter. It's a
Yes.
book. And it's getting people reading, it's getting people thinking about reading. And you can see, okay, when 50 Shades came out, you walk into a bookshop and the shelves were full of 50 Shades ripoffs. And you may go, 50 Shades is awful. And it is, probably. I don't know. I've never read it. But the fact is, look what it did. It, there's a reason there are copycat books on the shelves. It's because people are buying them and people are reading them. And yes, it's diminishing returns. Yes, it's a case of, well, this isn't as good as 50 Shades of Grey. Um, but you know what? They're still reading the books, and it might lead to something else. The wonderful thing about audiobooks, and my girlfriend is a big reader of audiobooks, and she will devour them in whatever she is doing. Just I think she's read in print, on Kindle, and in audiobook. She reads hundreds of books a year, which is staggering. I'm in awe of that. But the thing about audiobooks is that if you like a particular writer, or you like a particular audiobook artist, a voice artist,
Mm.
the audiobooks will start to recommend more books. And so it becomes a snowball rolling down a mountain, and the snowball eventually gets bigger. It picks up more and more snow, becomes bigger, until there's a cabin, and it smashes through the cabin, and it keeps going. And it's all about that snowball effect. It's all about
Oops. Did we lose Derek? Oy, oy, oy. Derek, we lost your voice. No. I see Derek, but I lost him. Can you guys hear him? Oh, he's still in Second Life, but we can't hear him on the recording. Oh boy. Oh boy. Sorry folks on YouTube, bear with us. Derek's voice is gone. Let me restart the call on Discord. Camera, please stay on me. And I'm going to call again. There is something going on with the internet. Derek, can you hear us? Because Derek is is somewhere in Ireland. Okay, Derek, we cannot hear you, unfortunately. People in Second Life can hear you. Um, Bummer. Derek is gone from our YouTube recording. The internet is acting up today. I apologize. I'm going to throw to the last reading and then we're going to try to get Derek back. So let me just get our let me get our Skullduggery superfan ready. I know people can hear him in Second Life, and that is wonderful. Please tell him that we have to also accommodate our YouTube audience. So I'm going to throw to the reading number 3, which is from the book Mortal Coil, which has one of my favorite characters, Vorian Scapegrace, and he is the zombie king in that segment. Here we go.
Scapegrace entered the first funeral parlour. A man in a sombre suit hurried up to him, took one look at his face, and faltered. It looks worse than it is. Scapegrace chuckled good-naturedly. I see, said the man. It was the same accident that killed my brother, Scapegrace continued, realizing that he should probably stop chuckling. It's a tragic shock. We're all very saddened by his loss. The funeral director shook Scapegrace's hand and gave him a sad smile. Would you like to sit down? He asked, gently. I would, yes. I'm feeling quite faint because of the loss of my dead brother.
Hello.
The funeral director showed him to a comfortable chair, then sat behind his big desk and solemnly opened a ledger. He picked up what looked to be an expensive pen and raised his eyes to Scapegrace. May I ask your name? Scapegrace had rehearsed this part a dozen times, coming up with answers for every possible question. This was an easy one. Elvis O'Carroll. The funeral director hesitated, then nodded, and wrote it down. And your brother's? I'm sorry? Your brother's name? Scapegrace froze. It had all been going so well. My brother's name, he managed, is a name that makes me cry every time I hear it. His name, my brother's name, my dead brother is... His mind raced, careered off walls, and stumbled over hurdles. A name, a simple name. All he needed was a simple name to get to the next stage of the conversation, and he could not think of one. Aware that he was staring at the funeral director with a perplexed look on his face, Scapegrace seized a random name from history. Adolf, he blurted. The funeral director stared at him. I'm sorry? Adolf O'Carroll, Scapegrace continued, trying to be as calm as possible. That's with 2 L's at the end. Your brother's name was Adolf? Yes. Do you find something wrong with that? It's a common name in my family. I had an uncle Adolf, and a great-aunt Adolf. A great aunt. You realize, of course, that Adolf is traditionally a man's name? Well, that makes sense, as my great aunt was traditionally a man. You seem to have an interesting family, Mr. O'Carroll, the funeral director said politely as he scribbled notes. Please, Scapegrace said. Call me Elvis. Indeed. May I inquire as to what service you wish us to provide for you during this trying time? The funeral, of course, is what we specialize in, but we also— Embalming, Scapegrace said. Do you do your own embalming? We prepare the departed for their final resting place, yes. And do you do that here? On the premises, yes. We have a staff of professionals who take care to treat each individual with the utmost respect. We have found there to be dignity in death, as there is in life. How long does it take? The embalming process? How long does it take to stop the decomposition? Uh, I'm not sure I understand. What exactly are you asking us to do? I want him preserved. The funeral director put down his pen and interlaced his fingers. Are you asking us to perform taxidermy? Am I? What's that? Is that when an animal is stuffed and mounted? It is. That's it, Scapegrace said happily. That's what I want. Can you do that? No. Why not? Because the actual animal body is not used in taxidermy. The animal is skinned, and the skin is stretched over a replica animal body. Note, I keep saying animal. That is because taxidermy is not done to humans. It might be seen as somewhat barbaric. Wouldn't suit me anyway, Scapegrace murmured. Needs to be the original body. So, can you embalm it and just give it to me? I'm afraid that we do not provide a take-away service. Maybe the place across the road does. That wouldn't surprise me, the funeral director said huffily. But I doubt even they would stoop to that level. Mr. O'Carroll, Elvis. Elvis, I think the death of your brother has affected your judgment. You're not thinking clearly. What you're asking for is unsettling. It's what Adolf would have wanted. I'm sure he would have appreciated a more peaceful resting place. His last words to me were, "Don't bury me." We also provide a cremation service. And then he said, "Don't burn me either." The funeral director sighed. Elvis, I don't think we are the people to help you. It is not often I recommend our rivals across the road, but I feel they would be more suited to your needs. I'm sure they'd be happy to deal with your requests.
And that is from Mortal Coil. The chapter is Zombie King, and this is Vorian Scapegrace. I'm sorry, this is a little bit out of context, but Vorian Scapegrace is an awesome character who got turned into a zombie, and he's not the brightest zombie in the batch of zombies. And there is tons of humor. I actually have prepared another reading, but we're running out of time. So Scapegrace is just hilarious. He wants to be this badass killer, and then they turn him into a zombie, and he can't even get that straight. And then his second in command is not respecting him. Anyways, Derek is back. Are you back, Derek?
I am, and I just have to admit that that made me laugh. So I was laughing at my own jokes because I haven't heard them in so long. So I was like, "Oh my god, I am funny." That's one of the best things about being a writer like
Yep.
me is that like I write away and I'm writing and I write pages and then I go to bed and okay, the next day I get it in and I just want to I just want to skim pass over what I wrote yesterday just so I can continue on. And I'm laughing at my jokes because I'm really funny and I'm my biggest fan. And I think
That
that's probably something I should not admit to people, but it's true.
No, I think that's totally fine. And also what you're saying, I think with sometimes even if you're critical or not sure about something, the cool thing is that I found if you look back at something, a few years later, you can appreciate it on a much bigger level, because maybe the pain
Yes,
that you
yes,
felt, that you had to go through to get it out, the birthing process, if you will, as men, this is a
I know it
create.
well.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yes, I apologize to all those people on YouTube who my wonderful speech, my monologue for the ages was cut off halfway through because of some bloody reason. Um, all I will say was that you missed quite possibly the most stirring, the most emotional,
Yes.
the most it was basically up there with I Have a Dream in terms of speeches. So you missed it, and the people in Second Life heard it,
Exactly.
and so there, you suck.
Exactly. You got to come to Second Life next time. You heard
There you
that, you
go. There you
YouTubers.
go.
But speaking of YouTubers, Kitten Duo sent us a super chat, and Kitten, thank you so much. Kitten is a big supporter of this program. This is a labor of love, as you know, Kitten. We get support from Second Life businesses by them giving us a few Linden dollars here and there. We get these islands for free from Linden Lab, but this is a venture to the nefarious goal here is to bring people to reading, just like we just discussed, and that's our goal. There is we put money into this venture, so when Kitten sends us a super chat, or you support us by PayPal, that is awesome. The link is on the chat now. I have one final question. There's a question, Shadow. Just real quick, are there any snakes in Shadow's a big
What?
snake fan, and these snakes in the books?
There aren't. I don't think I have any snakes. There is
Damn.
a character called Serpine, which is kind of serpenty. But oh, there are two little snakes that emerge from a character's palms and they kill people. And then
There you
they
go.
retract. They're kind of like halfway between a snake and a tentacle.
And
So
the
there you go.
tentacle.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah.
See, you got both in one, Shadow, here
Boom.
in
There
Second
you
Life.
go,
People
Shadow.
love it.
Yeah.
Elder says, "Hey Derek, why did you decide to include scapegrace so frequently in the books? I, for one, love it, and so do I. I prepared this reading. We're not going to get to it, but yeah, why scapegrace? What is so hilarious about scapegrace? Again, this is the
The
excerpt that we just heard, where he's a zombie.
the the weird thing about Scapegrace is that he there are a few characters who have appeared over the years where I don't have a plan for them at all. And Scapegrace is one of them. Scapegrace,
Wow.
it got to the point where I would say I'd be writing book 7, and I'd be writing it pretty much in order, but every so often I would leave a page a blank, and I would just have a note that says, this is one of Scapegrace's chapters. And then I'd carry on with the main story. And so when I was finished that first draft, I would just have, you know, I just have all of these blank spaces where Scapegrace's chapters would go. And I would go back over the main plot and the main characters, and I would rearrange and work on and rewrite, and the scapegrace would still be blank. And I never worried about it because I knew that scapegrace would deliver his own story, and I wouldn't have to think about it. I wouldn't have to worry about it. He would just deliver his own story. And there are a few characters like that who deliver their own story.
Mhm.
Scapegrace was not meant to last beyond one chapter in book 2, and then he arrived like halfway through again, and then he came back in the next book, and his role got bigger and bigger, and then I kind of involved him into the main plot, the main story, but it was not my original plan. And so with Scapegrace, there's very little about Scapegrace that was planned. And so I kind of view it as there is very little that I can take credit for, because in the writing of it, it's almost as if he's real, because I just leave these spaces blank, and then I let him tell whatever story he's involved with, and I see how it matches up to the main plots, and that's it. So yeah.
That is super interesting. People actually, on another note here, was going to mention the crystal here is supposed to be the Echo Stone, and there is a picture of Gordon Edgley, the horror writer, Stephanie's uncle. He is rotating in there. The Echo Stone is a really cool concept. We didn't get to talk about the reflection concept, which I really love as well. But I guess people just have to read the books. Very brief answer on because Shadow also asks about the film or TV adaptation. And let me say, the movie business is sometimes crazy. We had Joe Haldeman here of the Forever War fame and other great books. And Joe Haldeman's Forever War was optioned to be a movie 1 year before the book was published, if I'm not mistaken, like 1973. There's still no movie. So,
Yes.
Derek, what's up with your movie?
Well,
And
it was optioned back in 2007, sold to Warner Brothers, then sold to someone else, and then sold to someone else. So it's been optioned a few times. But I took the rights back a good few years ago now, and I haven't sold them since that point. But that doesn't mean that nothing is happening. I've for the last few years, I've been working with a company, great people, great producers. Well, I've been working on the script with their notes, and the script is just getting, well, it got better and better and better. But the thing about movies is that I can tell you we're either really far away or we're really close, but it won't make a blind bit of difference until we get a green light. So we're trying our very best. We've come really close in the past, and then we veered away. There is no telling if anything will ever happen. But on the other hand, you know what? In January, we might get a news that yes, they want to make it. So, let's do it. So there is no telling, unfortunately.
yeah, too bad that there are no books that you could read in the meantime. Ah, what a
I
bummer.
know, right? Oh dear.
Okay, so actually, this is my final question. The success that you had is super interesting. People can read up on that. You gave a lot of interviews. It's just an amazing story. Also, what I found interesting, Ireland is so important. You're from Ireland. Ireland plays a important part. I was going to ask why all the Americans in the story, at least the four books that I read, are either idiots or evil or both, and they're kind of obsessed with the with freedom. Surprise, surprise. But Ireland is very important. But this success, my question is, do you think that the success that you were at the right place at the right time is something like this? Would it be possible today? Has it gotten more difficult or easier, or is it kind of the same? Um, Basically meaning if you are an author who has a big concept and pushes that through somehow, would it be possible, if all the other factors come into place, to put out a series that has that kind of longevity?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, I like Americans, and I may have featured some idiots in my books, but the vast majority I like.
Very
Second,
anti-American, these books. Just saying. No, I'm just
some of the characters are anti-American, and then some of them are wonderful. Uh, what's the second question? Yes,
the
sorry.
success,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
it's along
Yeah,
the lines of, some people, when you ask, for example, musicians or people who made certain records. I mean, this is not news that there was a different climate also in film. There's a lot been written about this, and I don't want to get completely off a tangent, but there is a change in our economic system, where the demands on return on investment and all other factors play a part into what
absolutely.
musicians bemoan, that say, I couldn't make this record. I don't know, let's say mm, The Wall, or a record like that, right? Could it be made today? Maybe not.
Yes. And in that, I mean, I know next to nothing about the music industry, but that would appear from an outsider's point of view to be the case. With books, um, we have an easier time uh, than definitely movies. Movies much harder to get a movie made. Um, um, with books, no matter how hard it is, and it is extremely hard. And I just read a thing today where the average, certainly in the UK, possibly Ireland as well, and around the world, the average author income is now €7,000, or £7,000 in the UK. So what, about €8,000? Um, which and that's down like 4 grand from last year. Um, it is not easy to make a living as a writer. Uh, you go into a bookshop and you see all of the big books from the big authors, and all of the smaller books from the smaller authors are barely get a look in. Um, that's if they even appear on the shelf at all. It is not easy being a writer. It is not easy making this your career. It's not easy getting your foot in the door. It's even harder to maintain a presence, but it can happen. It's because the secret is, the trick is, every publisher is looking for the next big thing. Every publisher, every editor is looking for a writer that they can adore, that they can work with, that is fun and creative and polite and nice and decent, but also talented with loads of ideas. They want this. The editors want this. The publishers want this. Every submission they get, every submission an agent gets, they are praying that it's brilliant. So, to a degree, when you're starting out as a writer, you immediately have an advantage, because everyone who reads your stuff wants it to be possibly better than it actually is. So they are picking this up with the best of intentions, and they are willing you to be brilliant. It's your job to be brilliant. But could skullduggery work the same now if it started now? Absolutely, it could. Um, it would be different now. It would be immediately more inclusive, immediately more diverse. But that's not following an edict from your publisher or your editor. That would just be a 30-year-old writer now would be more aware of these things than a 30-year-old writer 15 years ago, 18 years ago, sorry. Um, so, yeah, it is possible. If you're out there and you're a writer and you're working away and you have this high concept, crazy idea that, you know, could possibly work, you stand the same chance as I did back in 2005. You stand the same chance of getting your book published the way I did in 2007 and have it have the same kind of impact or greater. But there are no guarantees. In the way that there are no guarantees for movies, there are no guarantees for books. Better writers than I will never get a book published. Better writers than I will send their submission in to an agent or an editor or a publisher, and because of how the person who reads it is feeling that particular day, maybe they're rushed, maybe they don't have time to give this the attention it needs, they will not pounce on it and it might be ignored. And then you get disheartened and you go, well, I'm rubbish, I'm awful, I will never make it. No, that's not the answer. If you're a writer, you are a writer. If you are a writer, you are going to write regardless. Even if, you know what, to be honest, nobody reads it. If you are a writer and you are so self-conscious about your stuff that you write it and you put it in your drawer, you know what? At least you're writing. When you're dead, someone might discover it. And you will be hailed as the greatest author who've ever lived, but went ignored in their lifetime. There is no guarantee, as in this industry, in this career, for you to be noticed, even if you're wonderful, even if you are brilliant. But if you are brilliant, and if you have the right idea at the right time, the way that I did, I had the right idea at the right time. My agent read it, and she was the right person to read it. The editor read it. He was the perfect editor to read it. The publisher was the perfect publisher to acquire it. Not only that, not only was all of those ducks in a row for me, but the readers were out there and the readers were waiting for something like this. And I was lucky enough so that when it hit, it got a readership and the readership grew. But that wasn't planned. That wasn't part of the plan. You can plan so much, and then the rest of it, you have to leave up to everyone else. You have to leave up to chance. So yeah, there you go.
Derek, thank you. Great answer. A million more questions. We have to wrap it. People go like, "Oh wow, it's getting late." Those are the European ones. The
Yep.
Australian folks say, "Well, it's already it's morning time." Flenza says you have a good writing style that has to be part of it. Okay, so let
Absolutely, absolutely, it does. But
you have
but
to have
yeah,
talent.
yeah.
Yeah, but I really love that that answer in many ways. So I'm not going to comment on it because in the interest of time, this was a wonderful conversation. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here as well, Derek. Thank you for your time. Big thanks for your time. Really appreciate patience and time and being so wonderful with us. Uh,
My
we
absolute pleasure.
we promise we will not come stalking you somewhere in the Irish countryside. Somebody asked earlier what headset you're using because the sound is actually really good. So
Oh
um, the
wow.
microphone is really good. And my son asked me yesterday if I have an extra. I said, what is that Sennheiser headset you're using? He said, don't buy the Sennheiser gaming headset. The microphone is really bad. Your mic
Yeah.
is a lot better. Sennheiser makes good. But do you know the model real quick?
This is a low is a Logi, Logi. My publisher sent it to me at the last minute. It looks pretty cheap, but yeah, it's Logi, and it's nothing fancy. It's just apparently it's great. So yay!
Ah, then this is a Logitech with
There you go.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Logitech is very affordable, and their mics are better than the Sennheiser. I mean, Sennheiser makes amazing headphones in my studio. I have all Sennheiser headphones, but the mics that they have a headset for 300 euros. It's ridiculous.
Oh dear
Um,
Lord.
yeah, yeah. You get a Logitech for 50 or 60. So okay.
Yeah.
Um, now this is it, Derek. I'm gonna run through the credits in 30 seconds, and then we can all go to bed or go to a different sim in Second Life if we want to. The Second Life book club is every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. Well, I said already, thank you, Derek. I forgot to say thank you, audience. Thank you, audience on YouTube. Thank you, audience here in World. Second Life Book Club is every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Pacific time. SL Book Club at Draxtor.com. If you have suggestions for guests or critique, the show is produced by Isabel Sharen, Shala the Super Gecko, and myself. The location manager, master builder is Ruby. Avatars are made by Ruby and Bespoke Caravan. Ah, that word bespoke. Research by Shyla and Monkey. Now, also big thanks to today to HarperCollins, who sent me this big box of books. I really appreciate it. I read everything. I don't have a Netflix subscription, so what am I gonna do? We got three supporters for the show today. Here's Bespoke again. Bespoke, caravan maker of fantasy avatars. Bespoke gives us a little Linden dollars here and there to buy products and build those worlds. The other advertiser on the program is the Black Forest. Now, the Black Forest makes low land impact, high detail board games. They're awesome. Uh, Arduin makes copies of existing games, but he also invents his own games. They're fantastic. And we got a new sponsor for today, and this is of course Contraption. Contraption was established in 1878, where there was no internet. I don't know how he made that, but Walton Wainwright is an amazing designer, and well, people should be aware of Contraption. And he made, of course, Derek's hat for today, just like on a whim. He emailed me, said, "What, you got Derek Landy coming? Are you crazy? Can I make a hat for him?" Yes, of course you can. Absolutely. Now, next week, we're going completely different in a different direction. We have a nonfiction author, journalist, and author, Angela Saini. She wrote a book called Inferior, then she wrote a book called Superior, and we're going to talk about Superior, which is about the ugly, ugly history and the unfortunate presence of race science. An amazing, important book that ties so many things together. Angela Saini is coming next week at 10 a.m. Very important. 10 a.m. Second Life time, special time, but I'll send out notices in the group. And that's it. Derek, good night, and everybody else,
Thank
good
you very
day.
much.
We'll see you
Awesome.
later, and that is it. Big round of
Bye.
applause. Goodbye.